So this is the Benjamin Nye homestead, East Sandwich Grange. This is the museum, and I guess the original home.
Look at that little creek.
Little creek going down. We're gonna go inside. Benjamin Nye Homestead Museum, 1678. Open mid-June, mid-October, Tuesdays and Saturdays, 11 to 4. So, wow. It's a pleasant little stream. It says open. Please ring bell. Benjamin Nye Homestead. Listed in the National Registration of Historical Places. Hello.
I'm in the middle of a tour. You can join the tour and I'll catch you up on the part you missed at the end. Or you can wait, and it would probably be over a half an hour.
What do you want to do? You want to wait?
You would
Okay.
rather wait, really? Okay, so we're in this small bedroom now.
More slants.
Yeah, a little uneven. Hi.
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 Okay. So this is the small kitchen bedroom, and here you can see the area where the bar was when Sylvanus Nye. See it on the floor here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where he had the tap area. So that, of course, came later. Prior to that, this was used as the small kitchen bedroom for quite a few years, until 1816, when Sylvanus
Who would you
changed
have
things.
a room like this? I mean, who would stay in this room?
Oh, you mean prior to
Yeah.
it being a tap room?
Yeah.
Well, a hired hand, perhaps.
Oh,
One of the women who just had a child to
Hello.
be close to the activity of the house in the kitchen, any number of uses.
Probably was
we-
a warmer room than some of the other ones.
Yes,
but-
but not only that, primarily it was close to the activity of the house.
Yeah.
Potty chair.
Right.
So they could get up and do stuff they had to do.
Well, I don't know about getting up and doing stuff if somebody were laying in that just had a baby, but probably directing everything that's going on in the kitchen, I would think.
How'd you like to sleep on that kind of mattress?
The stencil is a Moses Eden stylized pineapple stencil of an aesthetic of the 18th century. So prior to, although it did overlap, prior to wallpaper becoming so available to country folk out here. Don't forget, in Boston with the merchants and everything, you would have had French wallpapers and everything early on.
Yeah.
But people out here in the outlying areas and the farm communities would not have had that. So, until later. And Sylvanus is the first one that put wallpaper in the house, and you saw the copy of it downstairs. All right, so other things in the room, the Cannonball bedstead is a rope bed that you can see here, and all the bedding is homespun, hand woven. So, and of course the quilts were made by Desire and Rebecca Nye. We have a closet full of quilts that were made. You can see that one was made by Desire and Rebecca, and other Nye contributions of quilts, and the coverlet as well.
Shoes are cute.
Yes, and the shoes are from, actually a little bit later time frames, but still. And I'm thinking that this could have been a maternity dress, because you can see how the front is opened here. But then again, a lot of times women wore their pockets inside their dresses, so maybe this was an access for the pockets. But it almost looks like something that could have been worn as a maternity dress to me. And this is a pocket. And this is what women wore underneath their clothes.
Yep.
Underneath their aprons, or probably inside a dress such as that. And so I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Lucy Lockett lost her pocket. Kitty Fisher found it, but ne'er a penny was there in it. Just the binding round it. That's what it's referring to.
Oh, interesting.
In the nursery rhymes, in Mother Goose rhymes. So really, you learn so much reading English Mother Goose rhymes. These were English people. And so a lot of the adages that you see in the Mother Goose rhymes are really life messages of the way people lived at the time. But this is a pocket. This, of course, is a patchwork pocket. You can see the initials of the maker on the linen side. And
Why would they have the pocket under their clothes, I wonder? Interesting.
well, pockets weren't made into women's clothes. And you know, sometimes they had it on either side, a pocket on either side.
Underneath their clothing, right?
Underneath the clothing, or underneath the apron.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So in it, they would keep maybe a piece of beeswax for strengthening thread, a knife for cutting herbs, those types of things. Yeah. Tools of the trade of the day. Right. So the samplers are all done by Nye children or people in the Nye family. This is Lucy Howes. This is Harriet Newell Nye and Mary Ann Nye and Ruth Sears Nye, who married Samuel Henry Nye, the sixth miller that we'll talk about upstairs. He was the last miller, and that was Ruth Sears, his wife, did that little sampler. I heard somebody mention the chamber pot. That chamber pot is an ironstone chamber pot, a much later one. Could have even been early 20th century, that chamber pot. But this one on the bottom here is a Staffordshire transfer printed chamber pot, and it goes with this lovely set for your morning ablutions. And so this is a very nice little set.
And what
You'd wash up
century,
with
what
that.
century is it?
I would say late 18th and into 19th century for Staffordshire. For transfer wares. Probably early 19th century, actually, for the transfer wares. Something like that. So, do you have any questions about
No,
this room?
just thoroughly enjoying myself.
Oh, good. All right, well, that's nice. All right. So you can see that there's an access. This little alcove here is an access. Well, not alcove, but jut out, I should say, is an access to get upstairs to the rooms that were built above that tiny little door. Of course, there's another way to get upstairs as well, but there was an addition on that side of the house that probably had tables, chairs, and what have you, the tap room in here, maybe more tables and chairs in the west parlor here. So, and the fact that the bake oven is so deep suggests that it's for more than just a family. Right. So see, all of these things have now come together with evidence of a Nye tavern. Right.
It makes sense
Yeah.
being on the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they're very excited about that. So it's worth mentioning. Yeah. All right. So
Should take us back in there.
this is the west parlor. This is our newest
The quilts.
restoration, actually.
I love that embroidery.
Oh, I know. It's nice on the full screen. Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, so this is Joseph Nye and Lemuel Nye. They did not live in this house, but they did inherit Benjamin Nye's first house over on Spring Hill, the 17th century house, first built over on Spring Hill, and they cut the house in half. Lemuel used his half of the house to build a Greek revival that's still over there on Spring Hill, and Joseph, his older uncle, built a small Cape Cod cottage out of his half. And you have to realize that people repurposed wood all the time, and any number of supplies.
Also, they took, I'm sorry, they dismantled the house and built two.
Well, actually, they kept part of it together. He moved his half slightly to the right of Lemuel's, and built over it.
Yeah.
And Lemuel built actually a Greek revival, but you can see that he's a younger, very dashing businessman. And Greek revival was the new style coming in at that time,
Yeah.
in the 19th century. And so that's what he built.
Boy, he looks a lot like your grandpa.
I know,
In the
it
face.
is interesting how people handled things.
I'll tell you, just reading Thoreau,
Yeah.
read Thoreau's Cape Cod.
House he built over on Spring Hill, and they cut the house in half, and they built, each of them built their own houses out of the half that they had inherited. Okay, which is an interesting way of handling an inheritance. Yeah. And the pieces inside the case here were from the archaeological dig that was done under the floor, I think it was 2 years ago. And here are some of the pictures of the things. Most significant were the pieces of 17th century glass and the lead cames these are the lead cames that held it together in the casement windows, and you said you went to the Hoxie House. Right, so you understand what a casement window is. Okay, and a piece of flax. We know that they grew flax and spun flax
So
here.
is this the flax?
This is flax that's prepared. Yes, it does look like hair.
Yeah.
I mean, don't forget, flaxen haired and tow-headed.
Yeah.
All of those terms come from the flax plant. So this is already prepared flax that is ready to, and of course it gets messed up because people are touching all the time, but here's a beautiful piece of flax ready to be spun.
And that's
Okay.
spun just like wool.
Not just like wool, it's spun on a flax wheel into an orifice and a flyer.
Wow.
So it's spun with a much greater twist than you would have on the end of a spindle from a wool wheel, and I'll explain all of that upstairs
Okay.
when we get upstairs. So you will see that whole process. Okay, so that lovely sampler is Joseph Nye and Betsy Nye, and it was done by Lydia Nye. It's a family genealogy, so that is a very nice sampler, yes.
He died at 35.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep, he died at 35. I mean, and that was the impetus for the sample. Yeah. So the sheep portrait was donated to the Grange Hall next door. I love that portrait. And you
I
know,
love it.
in the fall when it
I
gets
love the
cold
eyes.
and it gets dark pretty early. You know, it's especially on a dark day. And we used to be open until 4:30, so that's even a half an hour later. I would walk in here to turn out lights and get things straightened out, and it's almost like you can see their breath. I'm not kidding. I mean, it's just it's one of those things. I mean, they're so realistic looking, you know.
I love their
Yeah.
eyes. Their eyes are
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, the wool is beautifully rendered. Yeah, gorgeous. But the Bible that you see on the little table there, that was Deacon Samuel Nye's, and he lived from 1789 to 1867, as you can see, and he was the 5th miller. So he was the next to the last miller. Okay, and actually he did a lot with the Native Americans in the area, and as a deacon, and yeah.
You use the term miller. What does that mean?
A miller is someone who runs the mill.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, all last names, English last names are really for their, what their vocation was. A miller, the last name. A carter is someone who leads the horse cart. Carter, that's
Oh,
T.
interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
Was he
A lot of last names.
Was he involved with the Wampanoags in Mashpee when they were going to rebel? And I thought there was a deacon, and I thought it was a nun.
Well, there was an issue about a piece of land over there, and maybe he quelled the problem, but I'm not exactly sure of I'm not sure of the details of that event, so I can't really speak to it.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
But I know that he was instrumental in working with the Native Americans in a positive way.
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
In a
he rep-
positive
he
way.
represent- he represented them,
Correct,
yeah.
yeah. So, all right. So shall we, and now you had mentioned the pole screen, so let me just go into that. The pole itself is 18th century. I cannot tell you the time frame that the needlework was done, but it certainly is done in an 18th century style on a lovely piece of linen.
It's really good,
Mm-hmm,
really good.
yeah.
I like it.
And that was used.
But this is an 18th century pole.
that was
Yes,
used
it was,
to deflect the heat, wasn't it?
yes, off a woman's face.
Mm.
Because they would sit here and it gets very hot on your face, you know, in the evening while doing needlework and such, yeah. All right, so I guess we can move along now out of this room. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. Now, in here, okay, I'll just explain first.
Okay.
And then whoever wants to go inside, but please be careful of your head, I don't want to be responsible. People clunk their heads so hard sometimes they're seeing stars because they lift their head just a few seconds too soon. And it makes me terribly nervous, I hate to see anybody hurt. But on the back wall here, you can see a curve. That is how far back Benjamin Nye's original walk-in fireplace from the front room went. So in your mind, you have to minus out the brick wall in front of it because that was built for Sylvanus's fireplace. The original fireplace, of course, was opened all the way back to that curve. So if
I
you
gotta
want to
see.
take a peek
I gotta peek.
there.
Oh, wow.
I'm famous for being falls in my head.
Oh my God, I've had men absolutely
Wow.
mutilate themselves. Oh, I'm fine, rash.
Do you want to see?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like all these chimneys going up.
Yeah. So, yes, please, everybody take your brochures now.
We'll use it.
Oh, okay, are you sure you?
Oh, yeah, that's fine, that's all right.
Well, I try to pass them out here because when people finish upstairs, they walk right out the door and they forget the brochure. So, okay, whoops, my coffee. All right. So,
Yeah.
okay, so folks, we'll go upstairs and we are going to turn to the right into the marine room. Okay? And there we'll talk about men that went to sea. That are direct descendant Nyes.
It's a tiny little staircase. She called this a marine room.
The ceiling, you can see the sag in the ceiling, huh?
And so, at first,
What's that?
all right, so you can see Peleg Nye's story right here. Okay, so this always gives me trouble, this light. Oh, it takes me 5 times. No, nothing yet. Oh, I get